All right, let's talk about the best team in the daggum country.
So up until the very end of the game, Michigan had one tackle for loss against Oregon. We talked
Mhm.
on Big Game Breakdown on Tuesdays on CBS Sports Network this week, actually at noon. So check us out. How that had to be the way for Michigan to win the ball game, and Oregon could not let them destroy them up front. This would be a good test for the kind of reshuffled Oregon offensive line, maybe in a way that Ohio State wasn't. They handled it easily. They ran the ball all over Michigan too. Like every time you look up, it's like, oh wow, that's another chunk run for Michigan. So, or excuse me, for Oregon. So I was pretty impressed with that. They also really limited Michigan's big plays, which is not that hard to do. But I think if you're watching it, like the biggest play Michigan had, I'm pretty sure was that flea flicker.
Right.
Other than that, they had like zero. So uh, pretty dominant win. I mean, 470 to 270 total yards, but it never really felt like Michigan had any chance to win the game. It for a little while, I felt like they might have a chance to cover the game, but not win it.
Yeah, that was. I mean, Michigan got the touchdown early because of the fumbled kickoff. It gave them great field position, and then they got. You mentioned that flea flicker. That was their biggest play of the game, and they still only got a field goal out of that. So it was like that's what Michigan needed just to get 10 points on the board in the first half to kind of make this game feel close. But Oregon goes right down the field, gets the touchdown before halftime. Just make sure because it's like they've done all season in the Big Ten outside the Ohio State game. It's just make sure before halftime the other team knows it's done. Like, and that's the kind of what they're trying to do, and that's what they did in this game. Third quarter, Michigan did score a touchdown, cut it down a little bit, but then Oregon just put its foot right back on the gas. And I think that, like, if you're Oregon, there's really no major takeaway to take from this. You looked like Oregon. You looked like the team that we've seen the last, month and a half at this point. For Michigan, oddly enough, like they lost, but if you're a Michigan fan, based on what you've seen this year, losing to Oregon by 21, you're probably like, hey, not too bad. Not too
Yeah.
bad. Because, like, there is, if you watch them last week against Michigan State and you watch them today, offensively, they are kind of figuring things out. Like, Davis Warren is playing better. Alex Orji is playing better in his limited snaps. They're accomplishing things. They're still not good. They still don't have any receivers to speak of at all. But the fact that Oregon knows that and they were still able to get the ball to Colston Loveland 7
A
times for
million
112
times
yards,
for all of their
it's
offensive
like, yeah. So
yards.
it's like,
Yeah.
okay, we're kind of figuring out how to do it. We're just not good. So that's the problem they have to deal with.
The number one, Tez Johnson going down could be significant.
Yeah.
He goes down. He immediately goes to the injury tent, immediately goes back into the locker room, comes back out in street clothes, goes back into the locker room. It's, like to
if we want to speculate, if it's a collarbone injury,
right. If
4
it's
to
like
6 weeks, next 3 games are Maryland, Wisconsin, Washington.
Dylan Gabriel said after the game, he was asked about Tez a lot. He said, like my heart breaks for him. He's such a leader, this, that, the other. Compared it to when Terrence Ferguson got hurt. And he said, and, Ferg came back and I'll look forward to when Tez does too. It's like there seems to be within that team a sense, like, no, I mean, Dane Lanning's official word, we won't know, no updates. Team, same thing, no updates. But I think that there's a sense like, yes, like he's not going to be back next week, but the hope is that he's going to be back. And look, they're thinking about a 16 game season. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of football that's that's left to play for that team. And to your point about Michigan, they trick plays and gimmicky plays is kind of like their whole bag, but Oregon was also prepared for it. And so when they got the ball down in scoring position where they could have cut it to 7 in the second half when it was 14. And to that point, I think that they had held Oregon to 68 yards of offense in the second half.
Yeah, they held it for a while early.
The third quarter, Michigan's defense was like keeping the Ducks in check. And so encouraging, to your point, for Michigan, but then they fail. And Oregon marches all the way down, bleeds a ton of clock, run, punch it in for a touchdown. And then to hear Dan Lanning talk about the game plan, where to the tackles for loss point, they were very concerned about Mason Graham. And like after the game on the field, like all Oregon's players going up to 55, like, hey, you're a bad man. Hey, you're a bad man. You know, like all like, you know, doing like the like pictures and stuff. And they had looked at him on tape and they'd be like, this guy can't beat us. So it was a two-step process. Number one, we work the perimeter and we work everything away from the interior of Michigan's defensive line and we wear them down. And then in the second half and in short yardage, we run right at them. And that was exactly what they did. They limited Michigan's defensive line to be able to like really disrupt things. And like they still got a little bit of a push on Gabriel, but Gabriel did a great job of being able to escape, keep his eyes down the field, and like come up with some big throws. So I don't know. Like you got some pushback time?
Just gonna say the one time Graham hit Gabriel, he picked him up. So is he a bad man or a nice guy?
Okay, fair.
It's like, come on, man. Somebody like he knocks him down and he picks him up and they pat each other on the ass. I'm like, come on, you're not supposed to help the quarterback up.
There was a lot of healthy respect and competition between those two squads out there.
Like, he probably called him sir because he's so old.
Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel's on one, man. He's playing well.
Taking care of the ball, 10 and 15 on third down. Doing a nice job. Both Michigan corners were out, by the way, right?
Yeah, they were missing Will Johnson and Jair Hill.
A lot of talk
about alt lines.
A lot of talk about Trayshawn Holden. Obviously, Tez goes down. Trayshawn has a big game, and you know they're doing a lot of narrative building, as you might expect teams like that to do, circling back to the spitting, maturity, growth, yada yada yada. You know, that is whatever it is, but I in a season where so many teams have bled and have flaws, Oregon's the most complete team in the country, in my opinion.
They have been to this point for sure. They haven't really shown their weakness.
Yeah.
But everybody will show it eventually.
I mean, so Maryland off. Wait, was it? We got one more. It's Maryland off Washington.
Maryland,
Wisconsin off Washington.
Yeah, they get the bye between Wisconsin and Washington.
Yeah.
I don't know if either of those three teams could really show it. If we see Oregon's flaw, it won't be before Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I think I agree.
They also had so as the Michigan fans left, the Oregon fans who had been relegated to the upper like rows kept drifting down to the point that like after the game was over, by the one tunnel in that daggum stadium, you know who was all around that tunnel?
Oregon fans.
Green. Like it was a good day to be an Oregon Duck for sure.